1 said opium eradication will cause lose war in Afghanistan. First, the policy fails. Public farming spends every year in the eradication of aliens, farmers, restricted 60 times. In 7, 60 eradication of Afghanistan. 90% of the world's opium theft. Governments built up on buffers and eradication, recruiting government cops over corrupt eradication aliens, village, children, cutting, government cover the groups of needs, fraud, collecting people's no way, 100 mind, and the U.S. sent 2,000 Marines to Afghanistan for a new campaign of aerial eradication against poppy crops. Herald 116 U.S. Marines, some Marines, so cover eradication program, Marines want to pull the poppy and mess by turning arrow spring. And spraying is coming before the spring. U.S. commits Afghanistan is New York Times. In 7, that makes opium harvest and industry cars, I will then propose with the income of the bush of spring before the next spring. And the U.S. will go forward with aerial spraying despite Afghanistan concerns. This is Crush 2A. Despite representation by the Pentagon, the White House president, the White House pushing for eradication, so Afghanistan will be the target of aerial crop eradication. And the United States beginning a large-scale manual eradication campaign this month as well. Agency for Express 115. The U.S. works forward with the drive about poppy fields in Afghanistan, European outback manual eradication. State Department officials Swag said. And the government is going to cut opium production in the country by 30 to 50% this year alone. Afghan agents bans past 210. If we carry agents, we'll increase opium by 30 to 50% in the effort to cool the poppy fields. And the U.S. leads current eradication strategy to run a star in 6. The U.S. insists the poppy eradication force that's farmers and poverty and search to leave Washington will not budge lines about how to talk about a couple of drugs. Also, the aerial spray will collapse support with NATO mission and cause the insurgency to explode this Howland. In 7, fortunately, with massive aerial spraying, the Germans will oppose the looking surge from the NATO operation was for eradication, eliminate people, even more search people than you had before. Aerial eradication will maximize attacks against the government, and killing insurgents accomplishes nothing. Domestic opinion is on the brink. If aerial spraying goes forward, it kills public opinion, and that will rapidly collapse. That makes us lose the war quickly. Action. In 7, success stop measuring dead Taliban will public opinion, which does the sort of reconstruction, domestic opinion, the climate control, when sloppy to move fast and difficult to run. If you lose, full stop. Increasing eradication will divert key troops away from critical Afghan cities and the Pakistan border, allowing the Taliban to drop a foothold and insurgents to fill the gap. This is Jappy. In 7, intensifying eradication will be Germany's U.S. and Afghan forces large number of troops after rejected eradication users 4% in South and East Wisconsin, secret for the force, and the eradication element for the wood drive side of the border Pakistan will take place and will protect the Taliban. And despite any alternative proper aid program, eradication will cause rapidly escalating insecurity that magnifies Taliban control. Rubin. In 7, close traders will resist eradication will instruct the Taliban government officials, the Afghan government services, and no matter how much of the Taliban will cut the government, and it will not be limited to eradication of the progress or the Afghan Taliban becomes able to control the area symbol of Afghanistan will be with the worst effects, and strengthening eradication will destroy government credibility and turn control of the countryside over to Taliban. Rubin. In 7, Afghanistan will the U.S. like Afghanistan, South India, Afghanistan, Brazil, and Germany, not the Iraqi countries, and the program will turn to Taliban bars will by fighting the government for entering their areas whatsoever. And escalating poppy prices increases the funding for terrorism and corruption while pushing poppy farmers to more remote locations. Rubin and Sherman. In 8, eradication is not reducing money available to fund research, terrorism, corruption, eradication, raising prices will make more money available for the causes of global migrate. And eradication apparently multiplies Taliban profit. Rubin and Sherman. In 8, 2001 Taliban profit driven the effort of the sensitive government farmers starting to get into cause opium loss funding was causing a tenfold increase in price. And winning trust on the local levels key to winning the counterinsurgency. Military means alone will fail. This is Jones. In 7, counterinsurgency won't accept the legitimate government local public support Afghanistan. This is living price of the next and the original price of the civil war to recall the village promise better government security global public support center the US and NATO win or lose in the world villages not in capital. And the eradication directly restricting insurgency. Farmers flee poverty and end up turning against insurgents in madrasas in Pakistan. Taliban ground. In 5, people invest in the schools of eradication of the farmers towards the new government the radical madrasas in these schools. Right, Taliban for this current students for recycling Taliban term today. And this means the insurgency easily regenerates new recruits or recovers from military losses. Fail. In 7, insurgents are the racial people and heavy loss again recruits from the military Florence will have this support against fighting insurgency and establish better security for the population. And eradication is politically suicidal. The threat of it turns Afghans against the entirety of the U.S. reconstruction effort and sparks armed resistance is Rubin. In 7, the risk of Afghan from the foreign official who are different direction what alternatives are built in interest eradication and the aerial service for resisting the U.S. funding alternative life reform and not accident use for ability to attack the government access program eradication war. Eradication will increase the value of the open spray cultivation back the areas eliminated and drive more communities in the government's Taliban. And slowing the insurgency the key to successful development. The insurgency increases and trades off the needed economic and institutional reforms inside Afghanistan. Constable in 7, the rising but it's never been Afghanistan government essential with pressing institutional reform investment the research targeting government rollback or possible winning project remains on attack. And any positive gains in reconstruction are overwhelmed by eradication. Transnational Institute 5. In Afghanistan, when alien and large segment of the population causes changes of market reaching against within the with the war to defend their economy and the democracy. And the plan itself is insurgency from the Pakistan border, increasing economic commerce and legitimacy makes the insurgency manageable. LA Times. In 7, insurgency are primarily from Pakistan, but this can be managed because we governments around the world influence the insurgency when they have properly scored by political conclusion and by economic progress. And Karzai only supports eradication because of current U.S. pressure. Coming in 6, Karzai. So, heavy foreign pressure is not moving grow populism, but cultivation, holding internationally eradicating this U.S. pressure. Karzai's influence is policy making. Finally, Karzai increasingly opposes militarization and hardline anti-narcotic efforts. Bach. In 7, Karzai supports the most broad military solution in the Soviet narcotics, which Karzai knows is best, but it's not clear that he's shown what Karzai has to say. Thus, our plan: the United States government should increase constructive engagement with the government of Afghanistan by offering a guarantee to end the United States eradication efforts in Afghanistan if the government of Afghanistan ends their eradication efforts. The advantage 1 is NATO. Failure in Afghanistan will devastate NATO and will result in non-intervention in genocide and humanitarian disaster in the future. European Council on Foreign Relations in 7. As the top of the Afghan mission problem, the U.S. came back nearly Afghan mission always after the deaths with the great friction between U.S. and military wealthy division would undermine future intervention where the massacre salvation just had already evidence. And the United States wants to expand the use of NATO. The test of this U.S. leadership is in Afghanistan. Success is key to bring European allies back into the fold of the alliance. In 7, European allies have to be the military to make everything more than a small-scale PC of our original one factor living from the European capabilities spend the resume and make the analysis testing portion how European allies will called the US NATO operation in Afghanistan providing a test of their proclivities. And genocide attacks social vitality and destroys cultural meaning, makes life and death both meaningless. Card in 3. When a new culture has destroyed culture having an energy connected with social death, makes social average for the main basic removal or secondary ritual social action context able making nightmare like one step meaningful. Evil of genocide lies in the physical death, but also social suffering and healing towards life and discrimination. And not acting to stop genocide's complexity and supports genocide. Belson 2000. Not acting to solve in case genocide supporting and looking at the action from the action carries best of both aids of the action repeating knowing stop acting training accepts the action and action means complicity. And advantage 2 is a balloon effect. Global opium production is centralized in Afghanistan. Letting cultivation continue will prevent poppy production from destabilizing other regions. NATO in 7. Global opium production centers in Afghanistan. Down likely to the population more also connected to we're not talking about a vacuum of about 30 plus thousand activity while we're talking about activity expressed beyond 100 years history having accepted the fact that it will continue to be grown no matter what. And regionally, eradicating production in one country just spreads cultivation and destabilization into other countries. Demand for poppy farming is inevitable. Cornell in Bodano in 01. A major increase in urban activity in Central Asia will likely become by increase in Russian regions and countries control their territories. Directly dominant interest only the effective directors will question sense on the country and radicalized liberation. Nothing will limit the marijuana rates high. Drugs will be grown somewhere to satisfy the demand. And Pakistan is on the brink. A strengthened Taliban in the western part of the country would lead to chaos. Barber 218. Most sharps weaken their source of the Taliban and handles the war control right now. Leading to watching all kinds of long solution will then join up. Pakistan is currently poppy free, but decreasing Afghanistan opium production eradication by eradication would raise prices and shift cultivation of Pakistan. Taylor in 6. Pakistan is poppy free. Again, it's effectively price in Pakistan because there's agriculture, the combination of cultivation in Pakistan. And the shift in opium production will give Pakistan Taliban the resources it needs to destabilize Pakistan's government's movement in 7. If the eradication is the suppression of the price of opium will rise close to Pakistan looks in with the money straight to Taliban for use of the stabilization of the other country. And arrow spraying will turn large parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Taliban controlled territory, stabilizing Pakistan during its most intense political climate yet. This is rooted in 7. Layers of spraying from the Taliban controlled stabilized Pakistan books for finding some drug countries to move their operations into those areas. And independently, a strong eradication program will cause a coup in Pakistan. This is Smith in 2. Structure again is only destabilized Pakistan government structure helps in over the boost up the world across ensure radical state and environment through opium production and trade. And a coup in Pakistan will cause prepared for nuclear strike by India and nuclear war risks in 1. India wants to say a lot about Pakistan national folding hands of extremists. The prepared act by India will warn the wood for war, the US military technical opium in Pakistan and each has resulted in nuclear war. And this scenario is uniquely prone to escalation. The result is extinction caliphate in 2. If China will be reckoned to use nuclear to go high close to the Russian Americans will interfere with the watch the extent of personally will nuclear winter soon meaning the end of life on Earth. And we are the least violent, we have the least violent time in human history. We control the uniqueness on the impact we because modernity is resulting in higher standards and less cruelty and violence is pinker in 7. We are only the most peaceful, more species, time to and training sacrifices of the means of part will say 4 million future punching death and speaking today or since then not existing in Western modern culture transition made us popular and global wide circle said because in the middle of 1989 and the 2011 recommendation of failures because 9% just going to be verbally not about getting the threat solution against immigration from the United States lives getting small zones and frontier regions failed states and territories can often these people will find them how to share cheap with them develop technological understood because of these instead of cooperate increase because people more viable alive than dead and banning the state would result in more sovereignty would result in more violent collective identities being formed around ethnicity and blood only sovereignty disrupts these bad forms of organization is lower in 5. These citizens in the course of the words of the different subject the need for the system of that because the said to be more responsible to morality six builder or better than other can apply or imagine the universe high solution and final alternative forms of identification constructed around blood and that's in the case where state citizenship is also strength and trying to escape or reject the political makes the political invisible and rigid. It's a political to administration of policing and life rash in force. Sweeping negation makes sense and well-consuming modernity creates all of the understanding for the Bruce and the arcane modern real cause of black fashion topics for the capital zone, probability, that there was no escape, and engaging corporate world politics, explosion, polluting what's there, wars, vessel, harmony, inevitably, such air to the fuel, to other manners take over. And language does not shape reality. We mold language to meet our conceptual demands, which means that the meaning of the offending term is defined by our intentions, not a dictionary or a piece of evidence. Is paper in 7. Language cannot be determined from language, not the conceptual demands. Speakers in the scratching and the found of things, change of the language, people are thinking about language, the language come from the subtle change of language, which is not what you'd say. Expect from a person of flawed intelligence. Computers were discussed only with separate computers, yet not been discussed in modern English. And totalizing our abuse of power without nuance close up possibilities for change is Dickens in 92. Foucault also needed different sources of power to have even that all cultural practices and block and a variety of different kinds of demands, different kinds of responsible governments, abilities to notions of authority and violence and legislation phenomena something up together for the potential for a broad range of normative nuances is totally surrendered. And the result is certain normative one-dimensionality. Alright, with the bottom.
Okay, and so
that's the bottom part of this page, just the bottom one? Yeah. Okay, sweet.
okay, I guess we'll start on the K phrase today a little bit. So you read this card that says language doesn't shape reality, we mold language based on our intentions.
Yeah.
So basically, like, just because you say a bad word, it isn't bad unless you...
No, the idea is that language only responds to the conceptual demands that we place on it.
So how should we judge your intentions? Or how should we determine your intentions?
You have to take them at face value, I guess.
Okay.
Unless you want to be a psychoanalysis guy.
Yeah, that's cool. And totalizing use of powers, yeah, I got that. So sovereignty is good.
Yeah.
How do you increase sovereignty?
I mean, our argument is that the premise of the 1AC is that we have to bracket security, and we do so by allowing the United States federal government to manage its military policy in Afghanistan in such a way that prevents an escalation of insecurity in Central Asia.
Okay, sweet. So let me talk about your NATO advantage a little bit. This European Council on Foreign Relations card and the Schmidt card, right?
Yeah.
It says that the U.S. wants to expand the use of NATO and needs to bring European allies back and forth. And this European Council card talks about right now all they can get is these weak coalitions of the willing.
Well, it says, no, the European Council on Foreign Relations card says that if the United States is not able to successfully keep NATO allies in the fold, we're going to have to revert back to weak coalitions.
Actually, coalitions of the willing, but if we have NATO on board, then we can have stronger coalitions to intervene in genocide.
Well, it's not just coalitions, we would have NATO as
That's what I mean. It's stronger than just building a coalition, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
And that would allow us to intervene in more instances of genocide and humanitarian.
Well, the argument is that's important for us to be able to expand NATO's out-of-area operations because the risk of genocide means that it's...
But it specifically
says
it's to increase the likelihood of future interventions where cases of massacre, starvation, and genocide are evidence. Okay, cool. So you read this, I think it's one of your Rubin cards. It talks about the insurgency. Well, you say insurgency a lot in Afghanistan. Who does that refer to?
The insurgency refers to the former Taliban government as well as...
Who is now just revolting against the government. And why are they doing so?
I'm sorry, what?
Why are they attacking the government?
To try to take their country back, I guess?
Okay, when you read this card that says eradication sparks armed resistance, is that against U.S. forces?
I mean, that's against pretty much everyone. The scenario that Rubin points out is that as long as there's an eradication strategy on the table, Rubin says that nobody in Afghanistan will trust the United States to legitimately administer the country.
So it sparks
every project we do. Every project we try to do to reconstruct Afghanistan.
So is this armed resistance separate from the insurgency? Is this people resisting like the aerial spray?
This is like the farmers of Afghanistan.
Like shooting at planes or flying overhead aerial spray?
Well, no, not shooting at planes, but the idea is that they're attacking like the road building teams, for instance, because they think that we're just going to use those roads to eradicate the corruption more effectively. So the entirety of the alternative...
We're going to use those roads to aerial spray more effectively?
What's that?
No, all spraying first of all, not done aerially.
Yeah, there's spraying from the ground and there's also manual...
I just got a few more questions. Are you a security guarantee? 10 seconds.
Yeah, the arguments that we're a security guarantee.
Are you foreign citizens?
No.
Okay. I think we're good.
I'll take it in a second. Oh, is anybody having paper?
Yeah, actually.
That's quite a bit from you.
We'll take back like a few sheets, I guess.
I'll give you more after.
We'll be able to take so we'll be fine.
Okay, we're good. 37 seconds to use is right.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 off. Case.
Can you get these pops?
You can use them. They may not be able to support a fourth. That's the only real. Yeah. They're kind of not as sharp as they used to be, so they can't collapse when you stack them.
Yes, that was it.
Hang on. All right. Awesome.
On top of a definition one increase where NATO is to become bigger and greater in amount to eradication efforts to construction engagement toward Afghanistan, trace no fought generous policy aid in return for eradication incident through sacrifice have been regarded as a vindication of UN policy of construction engagement with the Taliban. The strength of commitment amongst governments of based on the conditions existed for a feeling to sustain eradication effort, be violation plan decrease construction engagement by banning eradication efforts and C standards. One limits best top that allows any assistance guaranteed to be top goals huge. You should set more limits in depth petitions the resolution of promote focus on educational debate emerge, change of orientation toward a target country, 2, makes the topic bi-directional, eliminating construction game politics, claiming advantage off those acts as opposed to top by providing the access to the coordinated ground, being voted for ground is fairness, and competitive equity, and X is a security assurance, our interpretation of security guarantees a positive commitment to the fan, a country against attack, and what security guarantees a positive commitment to military cooperation, non-aggression, are not enough to constitute security guarantees as terrorists in 04. Because United States along one world's main military powers is line soft to shape positive security guarantee, and is thus unequal one side protects other military alliances. That includes security guarantee in case aggression can be formal or formal broad definition of military alliance would include, and not simply apply security guarantee into United alliance, and the office strategic partners include recognition of security interests as well as strong military cooperation of various degrees. And 2, Ukraine example proves security guarantees possible commitment to extend security umbrella less potential centers consider security assurances foreign to Vector 97. As the discussion of Ukraine and North Korea indicates, in many cases non-production objectives can be attained with less substantial sense ironclad security guarantees in such instances are relevant. It will be a viable option. Indeed, in the case of Ukraine, the pledge of not to weapons and security assurance that provide important reaching an agreement. And B violation plan is that security assurance not a guarantee has no clause of a commitment to defend the target C standards one limits given the mass size and foreign assistance part of the topic. Security assurance should be rolled to a small set of the firms. They open the floodgates, allowing any assurance which reduce state feelings and security includes we prevent nuclear war as an act which may use a particular weapon, as which clarify under which circumstances a particular weapon and pledge not to attack to ground their interpretation creates only place at the top of the act and endorse solely negative U.S. actions to make are critiquing district ground our interpretation hold to the act to defending quasi U.S. commitment through petition our evidence in the case that there is more important distinction how these terms are used to diplomatic our interpretation is the U.S. FG security guarantee. Next topic how these voting in issues for direct discussion with fair proponents for a framework of competing interpretation framing and things of enrouting abuse for speech encourages teams to choose as a strategic option framework of competing justification is only fair and impartial way to decide topicality. Next. The criticism. A U.S. engagement in the Middle East is fueled by desire to secure and neutralize political antagonism of the global level. This rhetoric of security constructs the United States as the location of the world itself, making all attacks in the U.S. attacks against the world order and justifying all attacks by the United States as a response necessary for the preservation of humanity. The Middle East has the power to transform the world through its expression of enmity and violence and calls for constructive engagement express desire to eliminate that power through discipline of Western rationality. Policies of constructive engagement toward the Middle East force our enemies to decide between conforming to the values and norms established by the United States for humanity or to be outcast as an exception from humanity altogether. This is Iranian 05. U.S. government's rhetoric of global security disavows political antagonism and global love by designating global order's way of life that is under threat of religious freedom and peace as independent survival of the world is based on the life depends on the United States as the aggressor puts itself outside normativity by initiating violence so the victim not bounding norms spending its life as a location of some or the United States remains obligated by the norms of orders to threaten terrorism and then undertakes actions like the invasion of Iraq from neural motive by the cause of humanity as a whole external now the United States the world order means it must reshape the world in its own image of primary field of exercise the U.S. power and reshape the world in the Middle East because it's a region of engulfing the stable in the Middle East thereby remain outside the world order and this dissolution in the Middle East can either become a reflection of the United States remaining power of the Ark has capacity to transform the world just as the United States is just the United States exports peace and freedom the Middle East exports violence and terror and the states who face prospects of U.S. engagement have two choices one assimilate to the global liberal order or two face annihilation. Doesn't matter if the plan warms relationship provides concessions for them into the fold today paves the way for war against our remaining enemies tomorrow the impacts of perpetual war on a global scale is peace in 02. Unwilling to conquer geographically, U.S. attempts to manage the world imperially through repressive systems, global disorders, perpetuates the diachronic relation between the war and peace, and places perpetual war in such world we have frozen peace by accident and violence combined, accelerate peaceful negotiation, indefinitely no postponement and implementation of peace, policy, nation building, and sustainable self-behavior, economic points, and deep American empire is merely a system regulated disorder, and there is no clear rule suppression or defense, but rather an intervention and feedback. Replace war as part of the diachronic relation of peace, or wars aside from the sort of finds necessary after the recreation of the enemies inside and redefinition of peace, of acts of evil, with us or against us binary logic of global diplomacy. And don't be fooled by the attempt to reject politics of containment. The more insidious strategy of global control is one pursued via diplomatic integration of planets and Trojan horse designed to lock in U.S. supremacy over the globe and create a monarchy and divide between compliant states who we engage in a new global class of outlaws, as Campbell in 07. A successor idea of containment, the idea of integration, persuade the other powers to resign a certain key ideas how the world should operate in opposition to terrorism, mass strife, support of free trade, democracy, integration. It's about locking them, building institutions, and locking them even more. U.S. no longer prepared to tolerate regimes not mirror its own democratic values. And the alternative, the affirmative call to erase enmity and conflict and movement of universal humanity merely renders exclusions invincible and violence and warfare become unlimited. In a universal liberal utopia, enmity doesn't disappear but just becomes subhuman against the universal order, justifying the cruelest of reprisals. The alternative is to reject both this universal call and the false choice represented by the policies of engagement by admitting that, hey, I have an enemy and I can respect that legitimate antagonism of interest. It's rash and 05. Smith starts from the prior premise and perfection and acknowledges the ontological property of violence, one acknowledges the least defining all inclusion requires exclusion, but the condition of possibility, the same condition of possibility of recognize the one who resists disagrees, follow immunity from political opponent, distinction formally drawn and simply go underground because an invincible goes stronger, more absolute, and therefore unexposed force for reason making different visible Schmidt draws a line to stand war individuals against all individuals in the state of nature, against all states, again, in the second order of state of nature, and war just fought against the enemies in respect as occupies the cultural space, no matter how survivable as this world change to conduct a war, very distinguished when accommodating the latest and instrumental means of locating enemies of conducting war, not only make the war actually exist, but when those we witness today, no amount of demarcation will modify its effect because demarcation, pacification, maritization are weapons used to wage war, and all war, if you're the one who says there's war, is not to eliminate, merely intensifies the limit, drawing clear lines of non-combatants versus combatants, possibility roughly equivalent power relations, fantasize the elimination power of political universe, the device of liberal ideology of Bayless Atlas University equality. And before we can attempt to answer the policy question, we first address the ethical imperative of the politics of representation. This is Doty 96. Construction meaning construction of social, political, and economic power, and exertively linked. It's like just an ethical dimension meaning of an ethical imperative that is incumbent upon this total destruction and structures of meaning. I do not believe there's a nuclear alternative either. Or we can proceed to attempt to answer an intention of giving the politics of representation is representation of dominant modes making meaning different is responsible for duplicity and dominant representations. And this answers the fact on their language doesn't shape reality. That language is based on the our conceptions, which is based on the representations of both around it, and our interpretation is that both teams must defend entire representations of the debate, and of the failure to do so. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And to answer totalizing action, the pragmatic political action in itself is really never really ethical and cannot be selfishly answered. That of the ethical of the other, which implies the genocide, rather visions of peace and harmony should be actualized in present situations, making the impossible impossible. GG Jack and 01. The task of deconstruction analysis that demonstrate how the appears of empirical obstacle of the empire should be apparently causing petition obstacles have to occur in possibility structure empirical petition. There is no other place of fill that of this very obvious of the fancy the real as possible means the impossible does happen. Man, salty. Say no, Afghanistan were rejected conditions, got handed, etc. in 06. When aid denies applied to conditionalities, their effects have been limited. There has been more reckless applied to conditionalities. Both the Afghan actors don't themselves against a demonstrated public thing and resist the dog pressure away from Afghans have started to believe that they will get money no matter what the circumstances are. Realistic consequences, even not quite far from being passed back to the Afghans, will be able to create considerable room for maneuver in order to pursue their own political objectives. And the Afghan misuse of the term genocide trivializes our understanding of this act. Despite the Afghan benevolent intention, they attempt to shock the audience and act in action by misusing rhetorical, powerful words and a tragic failure to Hope in 96. I'm more frightened by this refuse of large genocide than anything any flag might still represent. Forget about the political correctness, not just talk about correctness. Genocide is the killing of entire people, or cut people. Some like genocide is the most step for murder of entire people. The word people banning the words like genocide, we say must be millions of the genocide as merely saw the world begin or as shocking rhetorical subject for the world death, tribalization, and shocking words and outlines for conservative. Watch when white people talk, you think of the concept of slavery, mass murder, and oppressions of no longer sufficiently horrible and hold the attention of the audience. And next genocide is coming back with yeah, that's fine. Next, circumvention elites won't comply even if they say yes, let's go ahead and stage in 06. All the bargaining process of the international Afghans do not take place in the equals. Afghans have historically used their agency to influence the terms of engagement. One can't expect the Afghan elites to continue playing an old game by exploring international interventions of range region, including the cash and resource the parts of the game to show outward performing minimally in these conditions. Afghans playing the game should be absolutely for many years. And our interpretation and our framework is you must defend a whole framework of the round, even discursive implications, and the way you use genocide and language in the round.
I guess my first question is, what about the affirmative is trivializing
the fact that you localize genocide in order to warrant a political act, right? You
what genocide do we localize?
Hey, we should vote. What's that?
What genocide are we localizing? Like,
No,
what
it's not
genocide are we
localizing.
localizing?
It's a reason you frame genocide as a reason to vote for a particular policy option.
So is this the argument that if genocide is
That's like, hey, genocide is fine, and this, genocide is fine in other instances, but in this instance where we have to vote for this policy, that
what
trivializes the
instance
nature
of genocide do we
genocide.
use to exclude other
Look,
genocide?
it's the way you frame your NATO advantage, especially probably to pre-indicate that you're like, oh, by the way, NATO helps to prevent genocide next. As if it's and using that word has invested your advantage with all kinds of power that you can use to reject all kinds of arguments.
If, like in Kenya, for instance, if there is ethnic cleansing occurring and it risks escalating into genocide, why is it not good to have a military alliance like NATO that's willing to intervene to stop that from
The
occurring?
fact, the way you posit the ballot or the claim of why you need policy action in order to solve this.
Okay, that's fine, I guess. What about the affirmative's affirmation of the United States integration is universal?
Sure, well, Right, it's the constructive engagement portion of the plan text. The fact that the United States constructively engaged with the country as a mask for promoting its values.
But no, what
abroad.
about it is universal. We're not constructively engaging everybody. We
It
don't
doesn't-
make any offer to constructively engage everybody.
No,
We're
it's a
talking just to the
universal
government.
it's a universal call to constructively engage,
A
right?
universal call to.
No,
What does
it-
that mean?
I'm sorry, I'm mixing all up with.
The Lincoln does not talk about
It's
engaging
constructive,
everyone.
straight up.
Your alternative is
We wanna know-
universalizing,
Yeah.
which should be rejected. Where are we universalizing?
That is not what the
No,
alternative
the alt
Your
says
alternative, I
universal
wrote
call
it
to
down.
reject.
The alternative is to reject both this universal
Oh,
and
yeah,
Reject
universal
universal
choice.
call. I have it written right here.
Right.
Right?
That
Where are we universalizing?
it's talking about when the Randy Evans describes this politics of, or excuse me, this strategy of engagement where we posit ourselves as kind of the defender of peace in the world and therefore create universal justifications for actions. It's not saying
Can you give me an example about the 1AC?
yeah, actually, NATO is a pretty good example. Like the idea that we need to construct a entity that is tasked with preserving peace in the world, and they can do so through violent military intervention. That is use of a universal goal like peace in order to justify violent intervention
Okay.
in various places
That's
in the
fine.
world.
What evidence supports a positive security guarantee to either the Palestinian Authority or the government of Iran?
We don't read any.
So how does your interpretation that security guarantee must be positive?
We
not
don't
look
read
at-
any evidence.
It's not that there isn't any, I just didn't read it.
We didn't read any evidence. We gave Ukraine as an example.
Yeah, so, all right, that's fine. Does your Afghanistan constructive engagement evidence have intent to define?
All right, yes, it's exclusionary definition for that.
It's exclusionary, it says that eradication is the only way we can
No,
constructively
it
engage
says
Afghanistan.
that eradication efforts are constructive. The SQUO is constructive.
Does it say that
engagement.
constructive engagement means X, Y, Z though?
We can read you a very broad
Or-
definition. We're
Well, it
going-
seems like we would need a broad definition, but, all right.
At the moment, we're just going to exclude your particular
Yeah.
action.
Can I get the alternative?
I got it.
No.
Oh, is that- Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there?
That's how business lost your power.
Yeah, I left it at the hotel.
I
I would not have made it.
It's because my partner lost his, and they're like pretty expensive.
Yeah, and I've got all these papers to grade for my class that are on the laptop. So,
We had a good excuse for a free weekend. Like, I lost my power
Yeah.
charger.
couldn't do it.
I ordered it, like, fresh delivery, but it didn't come in the snow.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting better at the excuses. Really good.
But the benefit is, too, it's the excuses. Yes.
Oh. And they're doing debates in class next week, so
Oh, really?
that saves me a little time. I really need to click this in though. So World is over?
December.
Oh, sorry, it's already started.
I think so, yeah, 'cause we gave them the topic like 20 minutes ago.
I think our dudes were the top seed.
Oh, just kidding.
Vermont.
Yeah. There was two Vermont teams that went there. The two girls and two guys, yeah. So Good guys.
I hope so. They're the ones we send overseas, so I hope they're winning here.
Isn't it international? You should look at like local.
Yeah, you get pretty Europe in Asia, you should be able to win. That was actually really cool. It was Thailand.
Yeah, it's also like travel.
Next year it's in Cork, Ireland.
That's where my family's from.
Oh,
That's
right.
so we should switch over to. We're all
Just for that tournament. It's expensive though, but it's like so weird because they have different cultures, so they drink, and so like there's a beer sponsor for the tournament. So next year it's Guinness, and they're serving free pints, 24 hours.
Yeah, I definitely have to show the world. Okay.
So it's like during the debate,
Yeah.
a Guinness table in the room, and there's like free pints for everybody.
That's crazy.
Probably leads to a lot of bad decisions, but
That's just interesting questions that come up. So, what are we gonna get out of my question?
I'm a little busy.
The safety of me and others. I'm just gonna take a seat.
Yeah, we had a policy debater. Didn't have a partner draft this weekend.
Oh.
The worlds.
Is that gonna be in like competition too? They put us into fill up the bracket.
Mhm.
11 o'clock night before, like, how do you even do it?
Okay, I'm set. Okay, it's going to be first to the two key violations on the word they do. So it'll be eradication and then security guarantee. And or constructive engagement security guarantee. Then it'll be case. And then it will be chief.
Where are you speaking from?
Sorry?
Where are you speaking from?
Be good. One set? First off, top value, we meet cars only sports eradication because you have US pressure that's our coming in 2006 evidence to offer security guarantee and eradication means we're compliant with what Afghanistan action wants to be more constructive, more engaging. Two, we meet their evidence doesn't exclude from the top proves how the term constructive engagement is for limiting top three counter-interpretation. Constructive engagement requires an effort to change the policy of the target government. This hostile sold in 2000 meaningful sort of analysis of term engagement refers to something more than policy, not an isolation significant feature is reliance on provision of incentives to shape behavior of countries with which the US has disagreements for interpretational lay ground. Interpretational justifies acts that are inherent because of eradication already the policy status that Afghan government justifying the laws have to make only minor changes. That's quoting because disabled behavior of government guarantees disabled based on the response to government's action. Interpret destroys that core educational ground sees limits anyone can find cars interpreting the policy constructing engagement justifies any acting top one of the negative interpretation is force easy. In 2002, like many terms expressed on highly politicized concept concerning engagement is mutable with a very amorphous meaning. T 5 T is not voter might change 2 laws within precedent for us to change or after 6 is good enough. We're really top of the norm and ground loss or abuse, so there's no ultimate loss in education. Next on security guarantee. First, we need the U.S. attack Afghanistan status quo by eradicating crops or provide security guarantee to Afghans by intervening protecting Afghanistan for the eradication efforts. We provide guarantee to Afghanistan against ourselves. Two is we need the Taliban is attacking Afghanistan by destabilizing through drug trafficking and threat of a coup. Our plan offers a security guarantee to Afghanistan by defunding the Taliban and defending it from them, defending Afghanistan from threats and instability through counter-interpretation of negative. Must provide a promise not to use their military to attack the target government. This is our net in 98 negative security guarantee. The promise not to attack and force for our interpretation of the lake ground. Our interpretation of better literature bases their office will action right about the U.S. refraining from attacking ground or Afghanistan. No, always have to be offering security guarantee to defend Syria for any country that attacks. It's unrealistic. There's no scenario has no solvency. There's zero literature on it. Means predictability. Their interpretation lack of solvency. Offering means after being inherently unpredictable, not real world, killing negative ability to create cohesive strategies. Means for non-educational, non-clashful debates, which ensures education. 5 is that the 5 you can multiply my T is not a voter and good to good enough arguments from the other flow on next on case. You can prove that their first argument is that Afghanistan is going to reject the argument, but we're not foreign assistance, which means that this is not applied to cards. Talking about the way that they misuse foreign assistance, which we don't do. The same is true of the third argument that they make. That's not applied. But second, next they make this misses genocide argument. But first of all, we're talking about real genocide that would occur that would occur sometime in the future. Their card does not say that genocide never occurred. The argument is just that sometimes people overuse the term around. They have no explanation which we're overusing the term. Second of all, that imagery and education about ongoing publicity and genocide person ethic of care, the man's real world political response to Kaplan in 2003 is operating from an ethic care for first the question of the power themselves. What have I done indirectly? This is those which corresponding to the question of the taking on how to police responsibility of genocide regime and unfolding personal responsibility to the victims of genocide and burden and the care which occurs with this past to help see the safeguard and genocide victims vital to his own sake. In the sense of well-being by force, to see how the U.S. directly assists genocide regime. Yes, to see those instance opportunities as opportunities when wasted. What will take policy should put the second part of the answer will be bringing self and really close to American spirit. One way to combat the self-interest powers is dress actually failure to comprehend self-and thereby including those matters more active approach to respond to genocide. To combat failure to my personalized victims or my mental health wrap around them and the humanity and suffering never during American opportunity that become for the educated voice such as outrage and hopeless and inspired greater demands on American leadership. Third of all is that their strict definition of genocide as a paradigmatic genocide, mass non-Western, non-industrialized genocide, silencing violence and causing more of them. This is altering him in 2004 making the Holocaust paradigmatic genocide as danger generating accident only Western industrial state armed with the pseudo-scientific ideology and achieved mass murder between 1969 and 79 and genocide massacres when virtually unnoted in the Western press. This was owing to the Holocaust having become the paradigmatic genocide between this occupation less planned, totalist, rational cases and determination by making the Holocaust the emblematic atrocity of made response to the criteria which we decide most hardest to command our attention. That means they would not intervene to stop these sorts of massacres because they would not meet this artificial limit of limitation of being called a genocide according to them. Critique. Our first argument on the critique is that we are not universal. Bracketing crossings is pretty damning on this. They can't explain the way in which we are universal. We bracket the violence of the Taliban and the insurgency in Afghanistan is causing that's and say that this is the violence that should be eliminated. Not that all violence of a certain sort should be eliminated. Second of all, we're not universal in our constructive engagement. We don't say that constructive engagement should always happen. For instance, the constructive engagement increased eradication in the first place. Now we're saying we should use constructive engagement to decrease eradication. Not proof that constructive engagement is always a good thing. We're saying it's sometimes a bad thing. Third of all, that plan focus is going to be the best sort of is going to be the best sort of debate. It's key because they move 9 minutes over 180, which means that we don't have the ability to utilize arguments that we made, which is going to there's going to shift out of arguments against them all for our fourth argument. That's going to be a voting issue for fairness because they're moving our plaintiff by claiming that we can't weigh these impacts against their representational claims. We should be able to weigh them heavily for our fourth argument is that these sort of representations or critiques are bad because they get to pick what they think is bad about our act and then pare down those as we answer back to the representation links. They are going to be able to pare down the links. We can't go our offense against the link, hold them to any sort of link argument they made. For instance, we can go for those genocide reps arguments that I made on case as offense against their alternative as the alternative against their criticism. Five is that our fifth argument is going to be go to our fifth argument is that you can extend first our grab sheet. Whatever. Our first argument is that extend our second review and we'll send card that we control the meekness on all sorts of impacts that modernity that we are defending prevents violence has empirically prevented violence and oppression. It's gone down. We're dramatic drastically in the last few years. Next thing that law leverage and sovereignty is key to prevent blood and ethnic ID relations as being the way in which we interact with other people, which does things that cause things like massive warfare and genocide. Next thing that are rash evidence that we must is that when they try to escape the political, just cause the policing of the blood, increased policing. Extend our Deacons 92 evidence that they totalize power. They say that there's no way out, there's no way to act, which means that they ultimately destroy the ability to create positive change for the future. The alternative cannot change the world. Next thing saying that our balance evidence that we have to act in order to stop genocide, or else we are implicitly responsible for that genocide. Our next argument is that the loss of the U.S. leadership caused global nuclear war. This calls out in '95, and the U.S. leadership, world much U.S. exercise leadership would have their chance dealing with nuclear threats. Regional hegemony, the love confidence leadership would produce the rise of no hospital, war and global nuclear dangerous leadership would more conducible splitting by multiple balance of power. Now, our next argument is that refusing to engage in negotiations or exchanges is going to paralyze action. We can't do things like constructive engagement with our countries. In fact, our veterans in 2000 evidence that are responsible for violence. Also, the only alternative to this sort of engagement is violence and force. That we need to have this engagement in order to denaturalize violence. As Hoffman in theory, if we're to denaturalize violence, we must provide historical and social explanations why violence occurs. Violence occurs because the combination of the parties dispute are insufficient cohesive to allow for negotiating solutions. As long as combinations are where we can take a people cannot change places. States remain in business, and sovereignty will take a status and dominate the form. Okay. Yeah, our next argument is going to be a permutation that you can endorse the app and reject the universal call to reject the universal call, and you can also you can endorse the app and reject the universal call and recognize I have an enemy and can accept that legitimate antagonism delays that negatives that people are naturally non-violent assumption leads to the demonization of anyone who engages in enforced violence and requires the elimination of political sphere, recreating the critiques impacts of rash, or rather than asserting the value of political as a central structure of social life, less it was intent on hammering the final nails of the political no original bonds rather than originally harmony, peace, or solidarity of harmonious difference of bonds, so the secondary world and choose upon the possible in the moral world as it is, and because of the moral diversity, some human nature will flawed social institutions seek to remedy the diversity of the world within from within flawed political structure, only seek to increase the political diversity of the world through only partially knowledge, cleansing, which aims at ridding the world of intrusive violence, and self-active fear, ultimately violence the power to determine the nature of harmonious society, the one who can determine what acts of violence can be judged the intrusion of the class domain, which acts of violence are to be condoned, and necessarily means re-establishing upon the promise of perpetual peace, and it'll be is that the next position close off activism and insufficient endorsing both strategies for change, create space for better activist politics of Christian in 93, that choice force is enjoying and total critique, be trapped in obsolete sets will lead to disaster problems that find ways to live these differences and coalesce against the rights, pressure, critique, societal black male militants against the struggles, essential to create space for better activist politics. Our next argument is that there is no alternative to the United States hegemony. The condemnation of it sentences millions to death globally. It's not perfect, but the alternative is all four close possibility of liberation, wolf that genocide. This reef in 99 those of your American power can end the people dead. Had the U.S. force not set up air bridges, like you're going to run genocide, 100,000 people would have perished. Now, all situation found bodily and small. When can I solve the crisis of such magnitude? You promise how to replace the post-Cold War order because they find suffering people unconscionable. The doings will be necessary, but so will the occasional use of force, choice, imperial and barbarism, half measures, birds in the real war, symbol worlds that live in imperial, maybe the best we're going to do in these kind of Palestine for real tasks is to try to harmonize this imperial order. And the alternative not liberation, but many codes goes next year. You can also extend our Pakistan advantage in the scenario that when we try to eradicate opium in Afghanistan, shift just to the Pakistan destabilize that country, cause a coup that is that's all the one you see. The impact of that is nuclear war is that when India lashes out against something, you can see that would cause a 100, that would cause the death of everybody. That means that their alternative wouldn't necessarily have to accept that, which would be make the alternative morally bankrupt. Next is that our next argument is that the low resistance is the sovereign is impossible to calculate our action. No, scratch that. Our next argument is that generalizing sovereignty by looking only at U.S. imperialism, sustained status quo hegemony. Not all states and state functions are bad. The smaller and five refusal of critical errors and engaged with foreign policy theory and practices. Bad policy was most states off hope and foreign policy scrutinized. Overall bad in the U.S. and generalized many cases the base for making general competitive to states or is this state existing powers hegemony as challenging not only public and NGOs questions, legitimacy for more rights and states as well, and not purely for self-interested reasons.
All right, let's talk about the first thing. So why can't we have an exclusionary definition to say what constructive engagement is not? Right?
No, we're not saying you can't. We're just saying it's a bad standard because I mean, we're saying like you define that and then you're not excluding our definition, right? Like nothing in your evidence says that our definition is wrong. All it says is what one case that would be top.
If we prove to you how eradication is not constructive, or it is constructive engagement.
Where's your case law?
Our argument is eradication, like we essentially concede your interpretation, right, in that sense, right? Like eradication is constructive engagement, fine, right? But that doesn't mean that ending eradication can't also be constructive engagement.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
That's why.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. But how is that not a decrease in constructive engagement?
Because our argument is that what makes it constructive engagement is not the eradication part. What makes it constructive engagement is how you got to the eradication. Right?
No.
Afghanistan did not have an eradication policy.
Okay.
U.S. constructively engaged with Afghanistan. Now they do have an eradication policy, right? Now we're saying we
still
can
don't
constructively
see-
engage to reverse
I
that
still don't
policy.
see, if you concede our definition, how eradication
If we-
efforts
Yeah.
are constructive engagement. I don't see how
Because
that's
we
not.
argue that agreeing with the Karzai government and engaging the Karzai government in the
Where do
way
you
that
do
he
that?
wants.
Where do you do that?
No,
I don't
the point is we're not supposed to agree with the Karzai government.
Okay.
Agreeing with the Karzai government gives you no ground, right? If we say, look, the Karzai government...
In the ARNet 98, this is the only counterinterpret that you will defend
Wait, what?
on the security guarantee.
Yeah, that's our counterfeit.
All right,
We
so
have to change that.
if we, all right, on the criticism, if we prove to you why reps, if we win reps come first, and if we get a link off the reps on the K, you can see the link
Wait, what?
off the representation.
No, I mean, my first few arguments were all arguments about why you don't link. Like, you're playing, like, you're only...
Right, but okay, did you give any new arguments on any framework in the round?
Yeah, I mean, my number 4 or 5 on the critique was... argument about why... What happened? Whatever, yeah, something like that. It was about why plan focus.
But we make a plan focus.
Yeah,
Just make
okay,
it another
okay,
reference.
okay, cool.
All right, this Kaplan piece of evidence.
Or no, the second one, on the genocide, it's talking about masking, specifically Holocaust, as as a particular type of genocide is Western, right?
Yes.
How is that?
The implicit
what's already
undercurrent in your evidence that you read is that there is a certain thing that counts as genocide, and other things that deviate from it do not count, right? Obviously,
No,
it's
our
talking
evidence
implicitly
assumes
about
a
the
very,
Holocaust.
very unlimiting definition of what a genocide is. That's not our position. Like, I don't understand how
The
this
position of your evidence is there is a definition of genocide, and it is X, Y, and Z, right? And our claims of genocide do not meet that, and therefore they should be ignored. Our
No,
argument,
that is not what
that's what the evidence
says.
says. We should not have an
Okay.
inflated definition of what genocide is. Our argument is that
Alright,
that
that's fine.
inflated
So-
definition is good,
so
because otherwise you ignore
your-
struggles like
Your
Rwanda,
answer
where it
to
didn't
our
happen.
your answer to our gentra is that strict deaths are bad.
Is that what?
Strict definitions are bad.
No, we say you don't exclude us. It's not that strict. Wait, I'm confused about what your questions.
Wow. So I've been like close from last night and I'll go run on this.
At least you made it.
That's exactly. At first, it was fun.
Hey, that's awesome. But whoever was bringing the food didn't make it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the second page.
So, I'll back to you guys. I don't know more than you pass it on to my food.
Mm.
And get my coffee, get my food.
Well, I would just, I would make something anyway, so I don't have to judge the last make it. I feel sorry for the person who messed that up.
The people who comment for the car all night, they're like, oh, they're like really cool.
Can I get my original T-shelf then?
The peanut jelly is really good. You'd be happy. I haven't one of those in a while.
You have bananas too? You do enjoy bananas.
That's exactly what I had. It was so good. For that.
Is there something wrong?
The good food.
Is he talking about doing that?
No, I don't know. If you want to.
Okay, I'm up. 248.
Position.
Okay. It's just a critique. Put me an overview on the top.
Okay.
Overview top.
Overview. The critique is functionally a turn to affirmative stance. We will always win. The best way to stop U.S. bad policy in Afghanistan and the Middle East is to stop U.S. policy in Afghanistan and the Middle East altogether, except the legitimacy of the violence expressed in the region. They will claim that we are legitimizing violence, which is the only way to solve that for the alternative. The root cause of violence tomorrow is always U.S. action today. Breaking the cycle is the only way to solve anything in the long term. On the line by answer their plan focus framework first. Plan focus gives the negative no ground whatsoever. Our interpretation of framework avoids all of their offense. We simply argue that representation cannot be separate from policy advocacy. We should not that we should only talk about reps, excluding one or the other, always going to be words, and international relations must be understood through the representation of the Constitution, and imperialism must be addressed at this level. As Doty 96. There's a relatively little definition of the imperial experience and challenges prior to the rest. Nowhere is the lack of critical attention become more evident than discipline international relations. The systematic little wall science around challenges of Western institutional laws, especially regarding the non-Western other international relations claim for itself the exclusive representative authority to define and centralize the essential relations structures of that process of global life and relegate the margin of non-essential international relations, taking giving the identity of the West and substates, ignoring the historical experience and counter against which these identities substates and constantly was born, not so much the intrinsic calculus of the individual various from the responsibility that makes Western power, rather taking for granted assumptions and naturalized categories of knowledge embedded and produced with context of promotion of Western values are primary concern here. This means that our interpretation of weighing representations versus policy implications is always going to be worse, and there's no abuse. One of our links is off the plan text action constructive engagement, and one of the others is off the quid pro quo nature of the plan. We are still going to win in a plan focused framework, and we agree they can leverage representations claims on genocide. We're not conceding them, but they can still argue them against the representation of the alternative. That's our interpretation of debate. On the line by line there, no link argument makes no sense. I'll clarify the links for you. Extend the Noorani evidence first. Extend the Noorani evidence, which it says attempting to moderate violence in the region, especially violence we caused in the first place, like by eradication, is based on an overwhelming desire to neutralize and delegitimize the power of people in this region to transform the world through their expression of violence. We're talking about people like the Taliban and people who resist the U.S. invasion and eradication. We should be skeptical of their numerous scenarios of regional instability and this wanton violence that will supposedly result from our failure to intervene in these affairs. These scenarios ignore the fact that this sort of regional violence is legitimate. It's often the only way they can challenge our global hegemony. Delegitimization of that right of violence does not eliminate it at all, but simply justifies our unlimited violence in response to exterminate people who don't want to be peaceful. And the second link is Campbell and Pease evidence puts the U.S. strategy of engagement in historical context by forcing our enemies to respond to our offer of engagement as the conditional nature of the plan. We offer them an impossible choice between giving up their ability to resist and thus submit fully to American authority, or if they reject the offer, they will secede from humanity, exposing themselves to absolute annihilation. This American strategy of engagement is a process of creating disorder and then repressing the symptoms of that disorder, creating these fundamental dependencies that further constrain the political agency of our lucky target for engagement in this case, Afghanistan. The Pease evidence is particularly important in the context of this affirmative. You can see the ramification of our engagement strategy and that we created this disorder through our project of eradication. Now we're going to try to solve one of the symptoms via further implication in their government. This is going to implicate U.S. presence in the Middle East forever. This cycle of engagement is akin to slavery. And third, the entire frame of the case is wrong. Wars are produced by the deep currents of history. The roles that ordinary people have played in the mundane cultural practices that mark the others as a target of absolute violence. These advantages can be found in the window of a couple of weeks. Unless we come back, the amnesiac temporality of the scenario obsession, we doom ourselves to the very impacts of negative speech of the case's causal understanding, prevents the recognition of banality of global violence, and maintains our ignorance of the true nature of wars, as Gregory No. 4. We too readily forget the ways in which Western cultures constructed other cultures of others. By this, I mean not only how metropolitan cultures represent other cultures, exotic as our aliens, but also how they act to the meaning and dispensable occurs as a result of their own activity and so express their territorial appropriation of other countries. We also find the gloss over the terrible violence of colonialism, fear, the exactions, suppressing the complicity, the colonialism, forceful influence, subjugated inspiration, not delusion. They are dangerous. We forget that often ordinary people do awful, extraordinary things. We expose the possibility that similar circumstances, most of us all in all likelihood would have done similar things. And if we have not contested these and these historians, we have not recovered the history of the United States, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Iraq. The hardest moments we subject with the heart of darkness, visions, always partial, original, culturally produced and performed, and pretend it depends on the space of constructive visibility, even if they claim to render the capacity of other space and we are also space of constructing visibility and visibility. I'll mark that. And war is a timeless theme of human existence. It is not a scenario that can't be solved. The way the affirmative approaches conflict guarantees its continuity and devastates the potential for understanding. To render war coherent, it must be embraced as Hillman and 04. We can never bring war, speak essential peace or disarmament unless we enter this level of war, unless we move our imaginations to the martial state of soul. We cannot confidence both means go into war and not in the name of peace. It's a deceitful rhetoric so often encouraged rather for zone sake to understand the mass of its love. This chilling disdain and pacifist war, the first principle of psychological methods, and phenomenon once we sympathetically imagine it reveals itself as war. Causes the very structure of our existence and our thinking about the idea of religion and of ethics fallen from higher minds. War tends to be examined piecemeal by specialists or set aside as history. Imagining their thinking transmits killing into taking out bloodshed into body counts, cases of battle and scenarios, especially needed not more special thinking into past wars and future wars, but rather an archetypal psychology, the myth, philosophy, and theology of wars, deepest mind, failure of imagination is another way to describe the system of air, which says leads nations and their leaders down the road of disaster on the march to follow the origin of disaster lies in the unimaginable mindset of political bureaucratic life is to do the functioning elected board working the levers of duty, following the hierarchical man without imagining anything beyond the narrowest of facts, reduced to yet narrow numbers, precisely strategies that triple to death camp with one war's horde to be so big so life may go on necessary to understand. Imagine why can't our methods of understand war according to Einstein problems can't be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. And a further link is their implication that they should increase NATO's ability to intervene for everywhere in the world, not with a weak coalition, by having a strong coalition that can intervene anywhere, but even historically sensitive humanitarian intervention imposes simplified norms and codes of conduct that ignore the violence intended to their execution. This is Campbell in 98. A number of recent posts to think through the question of responsibility and the resulting character response to disaster, emphasize the need to either limit or avoid the mobilization of humanitarian through the construction of new culture, conduct, new principles of action, right, organizing around core values, rhetoric, universal rallying, impartiality, sense of leadership, much in common with the all was not was understanding the of impartiality, humanitarian, to be counted by the field experience of aid agency development, suggested the situation advancing option, Hippocratic Oath, Raid, Motion, Magic, Ritual, Guide, System, do no harm, the faith invested in existence of options, do no harm seen, misplaced, do no harm, maintenance of position, we are in distance, ourselves, and others, and it's a complex set of social, political relations, of action, practice, design, meet certain goals, implement, plan, codes, rituals, allegedly tied to the final, non-predictable outcomes, like the recognition of the complex, illicit nature of disaster, gives rise to highly simplified codes, principles and values, the means to address civilization of humanitarianism, represent the common, conceptualism, because orthodox political thought offers by paper and more reasoning over open political content, we recline to believe the constructed normative frameworks can resolve political questions. And on the alternative debate, they say that they classify this part about how this is the least violent part of modernity, and that violence is decreased. However, the fact that policies of global management and engagement come to dominate the world is even more reasons for us to confront the nature of politics today as a negative. As I'm pretty sure we've all noticed, that people don't fight wars on horseback anymore, and reliance on liberal institutions like the UN is now considered the norm. This is exactly the problem. Despite its emergence as a global dominant ideology, liberalism has failed to make good on its promises. War still rages around the world, and morality has done nothing to limit the totality and violence of warfare. The danger lies in believing that because one ideology is supplanting another must be in some way superior, further highlighting the need for politics that respects antagonism as rational for. A regularization of conflict is stopped by Schmidt, sophisticated means of limiting the effects of conflict is viewed as supreme with European achievement, state complex order, virtual reason, loss against pain, victory, pain, years, Saudi, best in nature, 20th century war, but either rose with the limits of its desires and type of quality legal collective international organizations, with railings and films don't have. But one thing is clear, they're not sitting outline or banishing war norms, recent history amply shows they have moral exhortation, means the limits of violence, exercise, unfamiliar population, rules, civil wars, wars, ethnic cleansing, terrorism, surgical strikes, and heavily cut away health teachers, speaking of the disease in the academy of the day. Perhaps the structure that Schmidt fares here true is not necessarily made what's replaced, is never superior. The value should be more than the structure, copy the outlines, and any attempt to rebuild these particular areas of the structure enables the plurality of the world, thus enables politics to respect the representatives of liberal democratic homogenization, pacification, seriously great flaw. Schmidt's grand design, which thus becomes our challenge. If we accept conflict as the basic definition of politics, and if we take seriously the claim that all European systems of limited warfare represent the highest form of order which humans are capable of, in other words, the emergent order trumps planning, if it's necessary to extend this logic of the conflict arena, this friend-enemy distinction within the state, thereby collapsing the grander structure he outlines. That's why the alternative solves, because rather than embrace or suppress the war of nature, our alternative is a politics of legitimization of violence that allows for refinement of that war, that creates the possibility for differentiation between war and peace, violence and non-violence, friendship and enemy. Absent this nuanced interpretation of conflict, only one violent extreme and the other is possible. Is rational for. Do we find ourselves by the enemies who make our spins out of those disagree? Maybe those right there is an unlisted caveat antagonism in terms of political, not antagonism of war against all the same nature, which conflict is not a conflict that is politics is war, but not the war of nature, nor is the violent suppression of the war of nature. On the contrary, politics are refinement of war is war, double force of management, hands against particular forms of violence of nature, form conservative, non-differently, but because homogeneity and heterogeneity, politics are the ability to put a halt to conflict, the ability to recognize and determine the difference between conflict and political antagonism, the final analysis of the discrete practice structures, limits conflict, without generalizing such bounds, discretion, according to Carl Schmitt, is the apogee of civilization. And violence is not the result of conflict, it is the result of the drive to abolish it. Our vision for the world need not be defined by ideas of peace or harmony, but should instead embrace agonistic relationships. One recognizes the power of the other in one's own posture, legitimizes the transformative power of dissent, rules out the need for violence in the first place. And Havano 2. Every advance in life is never coming against some obstacle, counterforce, opposition, generates the development of the human self, not for some internal sphere, and the secondary exploded external relation to conflict itself is conflict, and through what it opposes, in other words, itself is formed through agonist relations necessary to distinguish between agonist conflict and sheer violence. This rules out violence because violence is actually an impulse to eliminate conflict by annihilating your incapacity opponent, bringing the agon to an end. They say also their sovereignty can predict anything ISIS offers for the criticism. Alternative affirms a network of sovereignty with roughly equivalent relations. That is our alternative. They say they read this rash evidence of their permutation, but that is offense for the criticism. We are not trying to escape the political. We don't believe people are naturally not violent. We are the only team that believes people are naturally violent for our Hillman evidence. The only way to constrain that violence is to legitimize it. All of it, the Taliban, the insurgents, everything in criticism of roughly equivalent power relations as per the term. That's why rash will always conclude negative, and the permutation will always link to the criticism as per their own evidence. Christian only applies if we were closing off all actions. We only say to end a particular strategy of engagement. There's no link. They say there's no alternative U.S. hegemony, but it's called roughly equivalent power relations. Our rash evidence outlines this as the only and the apogee of human civilization. Is the most we can limit violence in the world. They say we generalize sovereignty, but fiat solves this. We don't just look at imperialism. We end the policy that supports it through advocacy of our alternative. It's not a refusal to engage that paralyzes us because we advocate something that resists U.S. leadership. They say, back up, sorry, this is higher from the flow. The loss of U.S. leadership causes global nuclear war. The Gregory evidence answers this. U.S. leadership causes perpetual war, which is always going to outweigh some sort of temporal scenario that the negative or the affirmative structure.
So what's your alternative now?
The same text as it was in the 1 and 2.
It seems to me at the top of your speech you say your alternative is you're withdrawing from the Middle East now.
I'll point out in the alternative text where we reject the policy of constructive engagement as well.
I understand you reject the policy of constructive engagement, right?
Right.
Why does that mean we withdraw from
the Middle East? We do not withdraw from the Middle East. We stop constructively engaging.
You stop constructively engaging?
Yes.
So
I did not mean to imply that we withdraw everyone from the Middle East. I apologize.
Okay, that's actually cool. Okay, that's enough for me. I'm not going to ask you. Okay. Let's talk about what this rationale is.
Sure.
You say that we need a refinement of the war that creates the possibility for differentiation between war and peace, violence and non-violence. This card says, politics preserves the ability to initiate and the ability to put a halt to conflict, the ability to recognize and determine the difference between conflict and peace. Political antagonism in the final analysis is a discrete and fragile structure that limits conflict by legitimizing it.
Correct.
And you're Why does the act not do this?
Because there are specific instances of violence which you do not legitimize. I highlighted the insurgency, resistance to U.S. eradication.
Well, wait, so your critique is we should legitimize all violence? Wasn't the first line of the alternative like, we reject universal calls?
The universal call to constructively engage. I think
So
you're putting too much weight on the
so
word
your
universal.
universal call now is to
No, the link is not
violence?
to. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So your argument is all violence is legitimate.
All violence is inevitable. It's part of our nature, and
All
therefore,
wait.
listen.
What card says all violence is inevitable?
The Hillman evidence indicates that it is a
Can I check
fundamental
that
part
out?
of our human character. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh,
I understand. No, not. It's a fundamental part of human character. Obviously,
no, that it necessarily
all
it
violence.
is at the
So
base.
the
It is at
war
the
in
base of our
Pakistan is
humanity.
inevitable. Is the card I'm looking for. You have a card that says war in Pakistan, war in Afghanistan inevitable.
I did not read a card specifically saying the war in Afghanistan, the war in
So
Pakistan.
why would our scenario not stop war in Pakistan and war in Afghanistan? Not all war in Pakistan, not all violence, not all conflict, but that war, that nuclear conflict.
Yes, the Gregory evidence indicates that whatever collection of authors you put together to justify some sort of scenario neglects the people who actually engage in that sort of violence by simply postulating is that Pakistan collapse of nuclear war, etc., is
We're
not.
not simply postulating, we have
But you
internal
are.
links. You're just saying, well, your internal links are too general. Is that your argument?
We're saying that the way you frame this sequential set of events that is going to lead us inevitably to nuclear war in
Whoa,
every instance.
wait. You just said us framing impacts, stringing them together is bad. Then you said that that leads to nuclear war.
No.
It seems like one has to be one or the other.
I
Right?
think you misheard me. I said the way you string impacts, blah, 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 leads to nuclear war. Not that you're stringing leads to
fair
nuclear war.
enough. So then, why is my stringing bad then if you're not allowed to string together impacts?
That's what the Gregory evidence indicates. The way you construct a scenario in this way to justify an action neglects to understand the true cause of that violence, that people are antagonistic towards others. And the Hatab evidence tells you that the reason that violence escalates is because we try to suppress it by advocating this sort of overall peace.
But that
in the
doesn't
world.
mean that my scenario is not true. Like, you're saying violence is inevitable, and I'm saying, look, here's a scenario where violence is
Look,
going to occur.
even in a world where we lose that, we will still argue that the perpetual war that you implicate by continually implicating a further U.S. hegemony in the world will overwhelm some sort
US
of probable
hegemony.
chance of a scenario.
Okay. So then, how does your alternative end U.S. hegemony?
Our alternative resists U.S. hegemony by ending the policy of constructive engagement. We argue that
Do
the
you have,
policy
do you have a solvency card for that?
That's time.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get that card yes for before too.
Okay, I'll take a second. Can I get all my, the gen all?
JP, can we get the 2AC blocks back?
Yes.
Sorry, keep reading.
On what? Okay, hey, can you get, hey.
Alright, I'm on the card because I'm right. Alright, we're just gonna be
Can we get the 2AC stuff back?
the permutation.
Oh, here's
Actually, one more second. Alright,
this Tracy.
hey.
Hold on, okay. Okay. Okay, cool.
Alright, I'm ready.
Can I get those 2AC blocks back?
Interesting.
Oh,
The ones
T?
Yeah.
I'll need,
What's
I'll
on
need,
I'll need that?
yeah.
There. Okay.
Actually, do I have? Just the T, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'll let you in.
Thanks. There's stuff. Good.
Okay, can I see the time?
Wait, did you say what order?
I think it's
It's the K on the firm, and then it's going to be case, and then it's going to be T increase first. Here, yeah, T. Everyone ready?
One, don't tie your bouts to the repetition of the same paradigm of security that produced violence in the first place. Refusing to act as a way of asserting your agency as a political being that is itself can challenge the discursive dominance of security and open new possibilities of pragmatic compromise. Of the permutation replicates the same problem with the human face instead of effective amplifications. The very thing which locks us in the cycles of political failure. We must abandon this third way policy that only massive violence we enjoy as usual. I can hope for. Facts like this gives clear indication what the left has been doing in the past few decades, ruthlessly pursuing the past, giving away, accommodating itself to necessary compromise, declared enemy. but where it's telling its own position, declared opponent stands for socialization, endorse economic fascism, and saying of science, and fully endorse the rule of multitude of opinions, stand true, popular democracy, the total propaganda stands for freedom, press the fire against support and word against clear today rather than verse, but we remain socialist, true, practice fascism as in economics, we deal with America and so on, and unless we remain socialist, whenever a political project in a radical turn is and will back on pops up, of course, these goals are themselves universal, however, we do all is raised, and so on, I would have been an act in today's politics to prove impossible, promise to have one case needed to apply to combine globalization with social solidarity. This too, Tony?
Yeah.
And next, the plan of the all mutually exclusive the policy of obstruction against clearly not battle with the bold declaration of fundamental unity and AFTA will predictably claim that necessary doing the plan to some being danger, peaceful order, no doubt merits and except for the criticism which exactly chronological were criticized and begin with. Next, permutations that attempt to include our protection under the umbrella of affirmative cosmopolitan worldview, which simultaneously includes the negative potential for dissent affirmed, actually simply except by the argument presenting the rational five evidence and permutations not eliminate the MT or competition between our two positions in itself. It simply removes the line of demarcation, drives violence on the ground, where it will inevitably resurface and next voting on the permutation mass danger inherent in the firm's cosmopolitan assumptions and acts of cause perpetuated with those who want to prove that there is no war, that there are no fundamental problems permeating the flow of the foundation society by eliminating and excluding the voices of lying, tyrant, savage beasts who they say there is a war as rational evidence indicates, and next, and corporations are replanted by allowing after to reformulate the reputations of their policy when we critique these flaws as per the Doty evidence questions are grounded in the same way as that if they had replanned after we ran this as a voting issue for fairness and link ground and next the perms of the legit have responsible for the totality of the claims advanced on like assumptions of 1AC. However, the perm fails to escape vast endorsement of the UFC and its ideals of perpetual peace and liberal democracy. And next, the links folks are reason to reject the permutation unless they say are part of the 1AC, making affirmative proof that perms also a part of specific links to the permutation of severance issues. Both negative because severance makes the affirmative move target, promotes an irresponsible argumentation can't justify any part taking on the plan text creates an disingenuous attitude they can take the argument 1AC which undermines education rights on voter fairness and ground. And next on the case. The biggest thing here is they can see the framework around that you must defend the totality of our representations as per the 1C saying, and that you must, both app and negative must defend the interpretations of the only, and there was no counter-interpret of what that should be other than focus, which Tony articulated on the case proper. Or on that, extend the two pieces of the evidence and the round saying representations come first. This is key due to the genocidal representations and of the 1AC and the criticism links coming up to the last flow. And onto the plan power breaks and across Afghanistan will say no to condition extend. All he says is not foreign instances that the Salty arguments apply here, but it's the card is not foreign in the first place. If anything, it says that it would set a precedent for Afghanistan saying no to the United States on this offer. And next on the genocide debate. Their only answer was that genocide never occurred for the 1AC, and it's not overuse of the term around, but that's not applicable. The fact that they misuse the term around is what the argument is. The fact that they misuse that they use genocide, which allows us to misrepresent or not understand it completely of the act of genocide in itself, despite whether you think the act is kind or whether they solve for harms. It is an attempt to shock the audience, i.e. us and you, to call for your ballot and allow this repoliticization of an act. This rhetorical metaphor is horrible and it leads to a tragic failure. Extend across our whole 96 card. Their first copy piece of evidence is now responsible to this. They say that imagery and education about the complicity of genocide is what matters. But this the fact of the card is specific to that of the complicity of genocide and not of the genocide in itself. The fact that they just use this term to call for the ballot is what the harm is. And the fact that they dropped the Doty piece of evidence is what is damning to them here. The fact that that's why the representations and the discursive implications of how we frame things in the round comes first. And next, the second answer was the Ederman 04 card says that strict definition of genocide is horrible, but this is predicated upon the way our author assumed genocide. We give you no strict definition of genocide. If anything, we claim that genocide is okay. Yeah, and also their argument is that it deals with Holocaust-specific. Claiming Holocaust-specific genocide is horrible because it allows them to frame things in a Western and a massive non-Western logic. But we don't frame that. There's no link to this argument. Look at the card after the round. It's a horrible piece of evidence. And genocide must be rejected. Results in dissociation from life, which can scratch that. Utilizing genocide for political means is repugnant and explanations as well in 2002. In our law, the Guardian art is theorizing an expansive total of talent law explains exhibit of minoring evil. Now it's finally Jewish Museum and national recognized artists made the museum brochure on new daring and daring. Use action mean after your fashionable here the artist daring the Gibson Channel and Tiffany's Spirit of model street cap and accord of two works. So the question of whether the artist faced a label of culture of mocking of the illegal concentration camp or models of barracks can be kind of like theorized. It shows how seemingly harmless to pose here seriously psychological philosophical questions. The use of genocide as plaything for political and posturing is kind of contemptible. What is Jewish Museum thinking? Why did not think after September 11th the fact that they can politicize genocide in frames of God is horrible, allow the impacts and replicate the impacts to happen as per the 1AC.
You have 502.
What do you?
Okay, back here, genocide.
Yeah. Yours or ours? Yeah, do you know where it is?
Yeah, I have it. Okay. On the 1 2? Okay, I've got solvency followed by decay overview and decay on that. I just gotta push it to the truth, guys. Ready?
The cross by Zodiacs will be next on the careful next in the mix next circle the Afghan will say no but we're the first circle that we are furnaces the persons we are second missing the course when I see coming 6 7 kids of course of Watson for plans or dark second when I see rough share kids of course I move to the left line usually kind of narcotics that means that we sell kids of course will see as next circle is just such a religion big group first circle is the mix that we do first circle makes up with these genocide representation but we do not use genocide in over the fashion whatsoever we talk about the one I see how genocide is possible in the future and it's important for certain alliances capable of going to these places to prevent it from escalating into full blown genocide where less people die now for this part of the debate where the certain how it's combated that we use shock and for political action we instrumentalize genocide first circle in the service by the Campbell, like Kathleen all 3 part that we read indicates that we use this form of genocide representation. We talk about the way in which we represent genocide, i.e. we allow things like eradication of Afghanistan to continue at the expense of people of genocide through NATO. That means that we are complicit in sort of violence. The Campbell in this case, so we publicize representation because ethnic caring causes people to change the way they think about genocide, causing genocide to be less likely, which is in fact repeating Heidegger analysis because our only argument is that it's horrible for us to represent things, but it outweighs to have genocides going on. It is better for us to talk about genocide and not allow them that do not talk about genocide and let it go on. Blindly think is expressed by the negative impact analysis, solely factored in the impact analysis of the whole, because the whole entire point of the Ross argument they're making is that when we have absolute enemies requires an absolute response to violence instead of a normal anti-this response to violence means that all their genocide arguments and levels can see the Al Sharpton 4 card indicating that their interpretation of genocide and their 1 and C card indicates that it's only the type of violence can provide the Nazis, which creates a Western, which creates a ethnocentric interpretation of genocide, for instance, non-Western genocide being seen as genocide, which is colonialism, is a bad representation, which is rejecting world representation report. Now, these putting all review this part of the band for certain is the one agrees the entire arguments of why why violence in the world is inevitable. We do not attempt to stop violence, which is the way with the United States interventions and enable all the evidence arguments to make why United States intervention is a cause of violence and is the root cause is U.S. action is the one agrees agreement with. That's why we reduce United States intervention in Afghanistan. We remove United States eradication from Afghanistan, meaning that we get rid of these root cause actions that are making second arguments being crossed by the case in fact. So we have more specific scenarios, well, more specific consultancy, whereas the beast of ways that their actual war arguments are not specific and have a long time frame, but they have no alternative solvency for them entirely. These faithful arguments that their arguments is not a similar scenario whatsoever. We do not advocate a total peace. Instead, we're talking about why the war first not allow flashpoints like central issues to escalate the nuclear conflict because it's likely because people actually think about this ways in terms of antagonism. The next argument is the same across the Hoffman line by across by here. This takes out all the entirety of the arguments about why we should rid of all constructive engagement and we should look at they claim the alternative is the carbon indicates that if we get rid of all constructive engagement, the only alternative is violence, means perpetual wars inevitable in the world. The alternative is that means we can never engage and negotiate with people, so we always have to attack them instead of being able to say, instead of being able to talk to them to determine whether or not they agree with us or whether or not they are not agreeing with us. Thus, we cannot create antagonistic relations in the world. We don't have negotiation and constructive engagement. Now, the line by line, if they're top of the debate group there for regardless for arguments of our interpretation of the fun focus that keep the B subpoints that they have no interpretation whatsoever means that their interpretation is inherently unpredictable, so we do not know what teams are allowed to do in their world. The second argument is that this is better. They concede argument that the entire when they see because we're not able to actually defend private solvency and the impact arguments that we're making, which is a bad one. Debate is ensures alternative run third arguments or representations links are bad as well. They concede this argument and world representations they can always shift their argument as soon as we start to generate offense because they can start to make a representation of black but white. That is not what they said, and in the twin they don't have to go for all of their representations arguments. So as soon as we start generating offense, they go for a different one, which is impossible for the affirmative to win the debate. That's the reason why representation should be excluded. If we win certain, that means you exclude all the non-planned links, which means that we only have to defend the constructive engagement is good. That's the Hoffman curve. They got the entire list. Now the one that's going to motivate they make this reason was why we are because we have a universal, we have this form of universal embracing of things like constructive engagement. First of all, we're not universal whatsoever. We bracket an enemy, i.e. the Taliban. We know that the Taliban is bad for the interests of people in Afghanistan because they do things that hurt the farmers. They're also bad for our national security, which is the reason that we bracket them as being our enemies. They read this Nori on the card, but our harms are not a failure to intervene. They are we are saying that intervention is a cause of our harms and it's important for us to back enemies, which are making the entire of the Norani evidence. They say this Campbell linking across by reason number 2 argument is that we are not universal constructive engagement. We do not engage Iran or Syria or other strategic enemies. Instead, we engage Afghanistan because they are already a proxy government, meaning that they are not a natural antagonistic enemy of us. And we not only this Campbell argument, and they say they argument they're like argument why we can prevent why we can prevent a war, but this is not what we try to do whatsoever. We accept that war is inevitable and we try to win the war that's going on. The status quo. That's the entire when they see second argument is that they're all other attack analysis lead back in the same way because they talk about it's important for us to prevent perpetual war. But the fact is that the lowest global hegemony requires perpetual war, which is the inevitable in these systems of human relations. It'll either be us or someone else causing perpetual war, which means that you should always prefer United States hegemony because our closed like card contextualizes the idea that in a world of balance, nuclear war is more likely, which means that extinction will occur. Now, the next part of the debate, you can prove these arguments about why the United States hegemony is going to lead to war. That's all about why Kelly said indicates a balance lead to nuclear conflict. Their only response here is that hegemony leads to war, but it's not us. It's going to be someone else. They have no response to the non-uniqueness of the claim for them. Whether the party against the United States hegemony is better because we use our superior capacities in the international system to do things like prevent violence. We continue. Now, the one in 2 number 9 beta except for the party if you do not act to do things like prevent genocide, you are complicit in genocide. Meaning that if you do not accept the NATO advantage, you are complicit in something like genocide. Which turns out the alternative because it means that their alternative lies to be complicit in genocide. So genocide is a never part of the alternative because they will never stop it if the alternative starts to cause it. But the argument is that the argument that they're making about why violence and war is a natural is a part of human nature means that they create a problematic politics that accepts war and violence as being inevitable. So in the course of enacting their alternative, they will not stop at any bounds to prevent war, which means that if genocide is a result of their argument or that violence is a result of their alternative, they will allow it to happen because they accept it as being an inevitable part of politics. That's bad. We make arguments in terms of see about why it's important for us to bracket violence and try to reduce as much as possible, which the United States hegemony does. And also what the affirmative plan does is reduce the United States intervention in naming things that are bad for representation. Now the permutation they come this part of the debate, and across you can endorse the affirmative and you can endorse the affirmative, you reject universal constructive engagement. We only construct engagement with Afghanistan, and you accept that there are antagonistic enemies who are real enemies. We do this with Taliban. We prove that we're consistent with the entirety of their right alternative evidence. If their alternative evidence is so good, we can stop like all the arguments and permutation will stop like any residual argument as well. They make the argument that they're the only team that captures rash evidence because they're the only team that the people think that people are naturally violent. We don't say that we don't disagree. We read the pink evidence indicates that because people are naturally violent, it's important that we accept things like modernity because it tempers people's violence. You can cross by that evidence here. This is the argument of why we accept the natural inevitability of violence as well, which is our only permutation solves to take out these arguments they make about why we believe in more security in the Zizek argument. This is not where our permutation argument is whatsoever. We're talking about why it's more for us to reduce U.S. intervention, not increase. They say that we reclaim natural whatsoever. We are getting rid of the representational government theory argument. We say the permutation is still the alternative. They say that we were severance and intrinsic with these arguments natural whatsoever. We include the entirety of the winning. We do not add anything that was on the permutation. That's not the alternative. That means that we are not either from we reject the argument of the team. Now you can cross by the entirety of you can cross by the rest of our legal analysis, why the rest of the legal analysis here to prove that we have defense in the entirety of the permutations on take us plus our impact turn evidence about why it is important for us to keep the United States as hegemony and not allow balance. So we'll continue because the Klozek card is reason that permutation is that beneficial. We should win.
612.
Hey, can I get the alt tag? I mean, sorry, the perm tag. That rash guard.
Yeah. This is no second shape.
The one with the,
Oh,
one that.
yeah, it's different design.
Yeah, so it's roll of
Same
dice.
part, it's just different highlighting.
Yeah.
stuff that we were right?
Who's alternate?
You know where it's all over.
I haven't seen since after the JC.
Oh, here's that one where it's not even stacked. No, I think that we got that one back. I'll keep looking at it. Oh. Oh, I think I see it.
Time.
Okay. K and then K. Ah, let's take a look.
This is your one? Yeah. Do you mind if I get it? Go for it. It's a little metallic, right? A little bit, yeah.
That's right.
Waterborne.
This is our last one. This is what? This is the last one.
There might be debate
Well,
on.
I say, I mean, if it's the.
Oh.
If there's no.
Yeah, unless you want to.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're there. Why didn't like people debate on debating on?
I think we have like two people. I think it's just in like analysis being like 2 rounds of classes. Oh yeah, we have loads of these.
Okay. It's the case and then K.
This didn't beep, did it? I don't know. Alright.
On the case debate, we are still winning a risk that Afghanistan says no. He says it's not about foreign assistance and Karzai wants to blame, but our evidence specifically indicates that it's not Karzai but other elites in government who will reject the claim because they don't want to receive as part of a public governance means they don't get to claim 100% risk of their scenario impacts. And on genocide trivialization, their answers here are just bad. They say they don't use genocide normatively, but that is not the link. It's the way you repoliticize genocide to advocate actions. The impact card read the one and are their arguments about how they their arguments about how they're not identifying a specific genocide. That they're talking about ways to prevent genocide in the future flow negative. They don't identify specific genocide and just talk about how we increase our ability to maybe intervene. This proves the link. There is no genocide to be complicit in. They never identify one. They just throw the word on there to get an impact that they can leverage against critiques in nuclear wars. Think about this in a debate context. Why would they change their NATO advantage from a nuclear war like they're arguing on the rest of the flow and just throw, well, NATO has some sort of connection to genocide. We could probably blow that up in the 2AC to answer this critique argument that we know that Army's going to run because that's all I run on. The negative is rash. Then the politicization this way is absolutely terrible. It will always allow for, this is the Hope 96 evidence. It is a misuse of the term. It trivializes our understanding of the action of genocide. Even if they have benevolent intentions, their attempt to shock you using a specific word that always is used to outweigh other impacts is misusing a rhetorically powerful word. It's a tragical failure. And the will of two evidence that utilizing genocide political means, meaning to advocate a policy plan, is repugnant. They have no answer to this argument except that they would maybe prevent more genocides in the future. What?
Their Kaplan is proving the complicity in this round. The fact that they just throw away the term, right?
What? Oh, yeah. They're Kaplan. They read an impact to complicity with genocide. This Kaplan evidence, however, proves that they are complicit with genocide because they just throw out the term without identifying a genocide that's going on. There probably is genocides going on in the world that they could have identified to solve, but instead they chose to simply say that interventionism will always solve genocide in the future, which means that they get to claim it as a universal impact. What? And then their next evidence is that they read this Eltingram 704 evidence that strict definitions of genocide are bad. However, no, there's no link. We don't provide a definition of genocide. We're specifically just talking about the way you use the word to politicize actions in the way they do. And what?
Yeah, well, that's fine.
And there's no impact to that card. The best argument they have here is that they foster an ethic of care, but even if they do this, they don't change the way genocide is deployed in this round. They should be punished for those representations at the point where they continually drop the Doty evidence. They say it outweighs to have genocide going on, that there is no genocide going on. They only use it as a justification for U.S. hegemony. They give you no scenario for how the U.S. would stop a genocide or how NATO would do it. Even then, we're winning the Campbell evidence on the K-flow that was dropped that humanitarian interventions are more violent than what they try to prevent, especially on a representational level. Their only other offense is this ethnocentric argument, but they're just wrong. Our evidence does not create an ethnocentric definition of genocide. It only challenges the politicization of genocide used to advocate policy plans like the affirmative. It is not trying to tell you what it is and what is not genocide. It's just telling you when you should and shouldn't use the word to advocate certain actions. This is, yeah.
Explain, yeah.
Okay.
And the impacts of it.
Yeah, the impacts of this argument are going to be trivialization of genocide, which will lead to their own impact of being complicit, because when we trivialize genocide as something that is no different, or something that doesn't matter, then we will necessarily become complicit with it because we will ignore it. We will, it's like the boy who called wolf argument, that if you call everything genocide or you always use it to advocate every action, then we will start to ignore those arguments and say, well, okay, yeah, everything solves for genocide, but we're going to look at the other nuclear war impacts, which means that we ignore genocide's going on, meaning they never foster this ethic affair that ends in genocide and the status quo. What?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. They dropped the critical argument of the permutation. He makes this answer to perm solvency that they reject the policy of constructive engagement also. However, this is a shift to the alternative the permutation text. The only part of the alt that the perm captures, as I read the text, is that the universality and the recognition of it has nothing, it does not capture the part of the alternative text that rejects constructive engagement. They did not put that in the permutation text. If they go for that in the 2AR, read the alt text, read the perm text after the round and vote negative for being a moving target. They also, this means that they can't avoid a number of our links. That's the Noorani evidence that they do nothing in the U.S. policy of engagement, and they also can't avoid the Campbell link. They say that because Afghanistan is a proxy state, it doesn't matter if it's conditionality. Yeah, but this means that they're more pressured to say yes. Or we have 30,000 troops there to destroy them. They say they accept limitation of violence, but hold them to the representations of the 1AC. I'm going to get to the point focus debate in a second. That resistance to U.S. occupation is bad, and then we can eliminate that potential. The fact that they don't solve for the Noorani evidence is critical here. He talks about not only the universalization, that is a claim made by Rash, but Noorani specifically talks about how the strategy of constructive engagement posits the United States as the center of the world self, that any attack that disrupts the order of the world is an attack on the United States and justifies our intervention violently and infinitely violent. This is going to outweigh their claims that U.S. hegemony is, that the alternative is perpetual war, because we are winning an argument that even in a world where both alternatives are perpetual war, the war that is enacted in the world of U.S. hegemony is worse because they are able to define this status of peace that they claim exists in the world, and that the U.S. is the only person to defend it. In doing so, they allow to justify infinite violence. The better violence is the world of the alternative that Rash indicates a roughly equivalent power relations between sovereign states that will always limit that violence. So we prefer to the permutation in a world where they still link to the Noorani evidence. I'll answer the plain focus argument, extend the Doty evidence. You cannot separate policy action from representation. Extend my interpretation in the 2NC that we do not exclude either policy or representation. We should argue that you should be able to weigh both of them together. At the point we're making arguments that their representations lead to bad policy as in constructive engagement, you will be able to weigh those impacts against these war claims that I just did for you. They say that they say that what? They say red links are bad because we can shift them. I went for every representation in this round. There's no voting issue or abuse. We didn't move the entirety of the 1AC. We're still arguing links based off the plan action and based off the plan text. There's no offense under their interpretation. You should always prefer our interpretation, which includes more debate on both sides. It is equal. Both sides have to defend the entirety of their representations. I had to answer their arguments for why our reds of genocide were bad, and I went for every single rep argument in the round. This means that it's not impossible for the affirmative win a debate. It's a fair framework. Evaluate the representational claim link, representational links, and the impacts that come from them. But negative.
323.
I need the choice in case.
Which part's up on my screen?
The only cards that constructive.
So on the firm, they say that we think the better violence is roughly equivalent power relations between nation states, which is
Okay, wait.
yeah, that's the most explicit one into our
Yeah.
The other thing is that I think they pretty much concede like all this on defense.
The answer to that's just
Yeah, because close I said that the polarity and balance is nuclear working. Right, so it's the nuclear war session. Yeah. last thing is that in the local, they can see that there are links between the plain text, and there's no reason to hold universal constructive engagement for just only constructive engagement with Afghanistan. That's all the Binghamton University affirmative.
When do they say that all links come around together?
That's their last answer to the framework debate about why reps links are around there. That's all I got. They go there that we shifted the permutation text code because we said that we reject all the constructive engagement.
Why we should find it?
Because we reject constructive engagement, that's not what that means. That's not what that means.
Okay, I'm going to start on case number 4.
Set.
Yep.
On case they say they extend this card that Afghanistan has been rejected, but that their card is based on the premise that the plan would be taking away money away from Afghanistan. They say that the use of Matt's arguments first of all, or Rex and our arguments first of all, we're not following foreign systems, we don't like signal, or Mingo, 6 or worse, 7, they indicate that statical policy is unpopular with the Afghan government. They don't want to be doing things like eradicating it, and they're only doing it because the U.S. is forcing the point when we take away that pressure. They would no longer want to do it. They say that they don't want to be perceived as public government, but that's not the war within the card. The war within the card, they want access to money, and that the elites within the government want foreign assistance, but we do not deal with that, so there's no reason we would change that. There's no reason to change that, which means we would solve it. They prefer the specificity of arguments. Next, they go for this misuse genocide argument. First of all, they're shifting over what the argument was in the first place. The first argument, their original argument, is this trivialization argument, which they talk about at the bottom. That's the crux of their argument. That's what our optional for evidence links to. We talk about the way that when we set a static definition of genocide and say, look, genocide is X, Y, and Z, and say that it has to meet these standards in order to comply. We exclude genocide that don't meet in close interpretation. For instance, when we say that the Holocaust is a paradigmatic genocide, then we ignore genocides like that are going for places like Rwanda because they did not use the industrialized economy in order to commit the genocide that causes us to ignore those genocides and allow them to continue. That impact that's our balance in evidence, which means we're morally culpable for those genocides because we allow that sort of violence to occur. They say that the politicization of genocide is a bad thing, that we're just trying to shock you, but our cabinet evidence goes in the way that we need to do these shock attacks in order to politicize the issue. That's the only way that we're going to mobilize action and put pressure on politicians in order to actually cause those things to occur. They say that we don't explain how NATO's going to be able to do it, but our European CFR card explains the way in which the deadlock is currently preventing NATO action. NATO has the ability to do things like peacekeeping, which is going to build solid background. There's a new argument that we don't need time to read a new piece of evidence about why peacekeeping is solid. They have conceded that it would solve, which means we have the ability to solve it. Remember, they have no internal link to actually know why this sort of politicization is going to be bad. We're the only ones who have the ability to actually prevent genocide. Okay. Oh, and that's going to impinge on their alternative too, because I'm going to prove that their alternative is going to explicitly reject like the sort of the framing of the issues that would allow us to prevent genocide. Critique. I critique see at the top, first of all, they concede all massive link defense. First of all, you can extend an argument that we don't universalize an enemy, that we bracket off this Howland and bracket off this specific insurgencies, and talk about why that is bad, which means we're not creating a universal enemy that has to be annihilated. We're just saying that this is an enemy in the current status quo, and they're a legitimate enemy. Also, our permutation does the same thing. The next is say also they concede Matt's argument that we don't use constructive engagement in the way that they would say we're not doing it antagonistically. We're saying we're doing it in a positive way that creates better relations and creates better and does things that like not hurting the country on which we are currently constructing engagement. They also concede that we accept war is inevitable and because that's the status quo, that war is occurring and that is inevitable. Our issue is that we try to limit it and prevent the violence from escalating, prevent violence from causing things like nuclear war. They concede our nuclear war scenario that if we allow eradication to go forward in Afghanistan, it causes a shift to Pakistan, which causes a coup of the country, which results in India, which results in Indian preemptive nuclear strike, which escalates to nuclear war. This is a conceded scenario. Their best argument to this is that scenario should be ignored, but they don't have a reason why these scenarios are not true. We have laid out the internal links. They make them do specific work for why they have not done that work. They also concede extending our cows like car about why balancing is going to occur, and that the transition of that when the U.S. tries to remove itself from the international sphere causes balancing, which when another actor fills in its role as the global hegemon, that causes nuclear war. That's going to mean that all their links are inevitable. Every place where they say that there's a link that comes from constructive engagement, that comes from U.S. hegemony, you're going to remember that it is inevitable. There's some country that's going to be a hegemon. They say that themselves when they say that violence is endemic to humans. It's intrinsic to humans. There's no way we can avoid it, which means that this sort of fill-in argument is going to be inevitable. It's just a question of who is doing the violence and whether or not this transition war happens. That is going to be key. Also, remember, if it's not us, then it's going to be someone else. They make the same argument when they say that violence is inevitable. Also, that our paper 2007 evidence that the status quo has been that modernity and the status quo has been solving, has been actually reducing violence, and it's been causing a reduction of violence. Next, say the permutation at the top. You said our permutation that we can, which was the affirmative plus we can reject universalism and accept legitimate antagonisms. We do not do the part of it that deals with constructive engagement. Remember our plan. They say they only link to the plan text. Our plan text only strongly engages with Afghanistan, which means they cannot get unique offense from constructive engagement with other sorts of countries. But they concede our Hoffman 2003 evidence, which indicates that if we are to denaturalize violence, then the only way we can get rid of any sort of violence, that we can reduce violence, is to provide a historical social explanation for why violence occurs, and we have to do that through negotiations with other people, with other countries, things like constructive engagement with Afghanistan is going to be the key internal instance. They concede that this is the only way that we have the ability to prevent the status domination, prevent overbearing countries. If we do not constructively engage with it, the only alternative to this, according to our evidence, is violence, which means every place where they say constructively engage is bad, remember that their alternative would force the U.S. instead of constructive engagement just going using guns, which is not going to be a positive alternative. Next, they say they extend their Nurani evidence that we posit the U.S. as a center, which justifies intervention, but they can extend my argument the Khalsa 95 evidence that hegemony is inevitable. It's just a question of who is the hegemon at the moment, and the question of whether or not that we have these transition war arguments, which they go concede that this transition war, call that the transition as another country tries to fill in would cause nuclear war. They remember they're going to be doing the same things, so the same sort of colonialization, same sort of other impacts that they talk about. They say that we shifted our permutation text, but we do not do constructive engagement. We never claim that we don't do the abandoning constructive engagement part of the alternative. We never claim we do. There's no reason why you vote on this sort of issue. They say that the alternative is roughly equivalent power relations, but first of all, they have no method of actually getting there. Second of all, is that our Khalsa evidence going to explain the way that they cannot get there, that when they try to get to this roughly equivalent situations, that one group so grasp for power. Remember that humans are inherently violent. They call that reps are going to cause bad policy, but their argument is that this violence is inevitable. A question of who has the ability to reduce the most, and remember that they even said our balance and evidence that they are not responding to genocide based on the moral culture.
Yeah.